All right, so here we are with Noah Van Sciver, cartoonist and not co-creator, but creator of Maple Terrace.
Yeah. Hey, did you guys get the third issue yet?
No, not yet.
Man, I keep hearing that from people. I hate to hear it.
I put it on my pulls too, and then I was actually there last week or 2 weeks ago, and I asked him if it came in yet. He said no.
What shop do you go to?
Jim Hanley's user.
Oh yeah, okay, okay.
So I'll ask him again.
All right.
And how many issues are there going to be of it?
There's only 3 issues.
Okay,
but
good.
the third issue is like my favorite issue. So I'm always asking people like, "Did you get it?" And you know, it seems like half the time people got it. So I don't know.
No, we did not get it yet because I would have it here if I did. So just quickly explain to us how Maple Terrace got started and where the idea comes from.
Well, I did a book called One Dirty Tree for the same publisher, which was like a memoir graphic novel. And that book did really well. It was nominated for an Eisner Award and all this stuff. So the publisher was like, we should re-release it as in a paperback edition, but with extra material. And I was like, yeah, okay, well, let me think about like what I want to write about. So I started writing, and the story that I wanted to tell was longer. It just seemed like this isn't actually going to fit in with that book. For one thing, my art style had changed, and the story it just had a different tone. And so I felt like if we release this as like a bonus thing in the back of One Dirty Tree, it's going to feel like one of those DVDs that you get at Walmart that's like double feature, you know?
Yeah, right.
And I feel like that kind of cheapens it. So I was like, let's just do something else. And he agreed, and we just did the comic series, the 3 issues to tell the whole story. And then at some point we'll release it as a little graphic novel of its own.
Oh, so 3 issues, it's going to be 3 and that's it.
Yep, that's it. Yeah.
Oh, good. Okay. Not good. Not that I don't want to read more, but I like I like to know a complete story is, complete.
Yeah. Yeah. And I reworked it. Like after I finished it up, I changed some of the pacing so that it would work better, it would flow better as a graphic novel, because I think that, I don't want it to feel like 3 issues in a hardcover. Yeah. I want it to feel like one complete story that flows from beginning to end in a graphic novel.
Right.
So I made some adjustments for the actual book version.
When do we expect the graphic novel to hit?
I think in the summertime is when it's supposed to come out. So
yeah. I'll make sure I
looking forward to
you about it. Yeah. So in Paris, the characters are based somewhat on real people, correct?
Oh, they're all real people. Yeah.
So everyone is a bully who.
Yeah. That's a real guy.
Now I wanted to ask you because I know I read somewhere online that you had some pushback for One Dirty Tree from people that that were not particularly happy with the portrayals in One Dirty Tree in the memoir. Did you have any of that from this either? This too?
I didn't get that for this one. Right. For One Dirty Tree, it felt like a lot. It's just the timing that it came out in, but like a lot of people, like the ex-girlfriend, I had to change her name and stuff. She found out about it and everything, and there were family members who weren't thrilled about it. So I kind of went into this anticipating that, and like I even wrote something on the inside cover of the first issue, just basically like, look, this is my art. This is the way it's got to be. Like somebody said, like, once a writer is born to a family, the family's doomed.
Sure. Yeah.
It kind of felt like a little bit of that. Like, I'm sorry, that's just the way it goes. Like, I got to tell my story, and you were a part of it. So yeah, I didn't get that for this.
Was your family mad? Anyone in your family mad about it?
Oh, sure. They don't want that stuff told. That's like kind of embarrassing. A lot of my childhood story and stuff. They don't want that aired out there for everyone to read and everything. So,
but it reminds me of the writer David Sedaris, who he made his family every year. He makes his family sign releases, and they're not allowed to get their Christmas presents until they sign the releases for whatever is written about them.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
I have such a big family. They get nothing from me for Christmas. I send them a card and that's it. 100 people in the family.
Are you, I think you're one of 8, right? 8?
Or yeah, one of 9.
One of 9. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow, man. That is a big family.
Yeah, it's huge. And then they all have families of their own that are like, 5 children or something. So it's just like ridiculous.
Wow. Now, do you get together with your family? Is that like
No, it's like everybody, when you're from a big family, it can go either way. You know, everybody can kind of stick together and be close, or everybody just kind of splits off and forms their own planets. And I think that's what we did. I mean, there's like a Facebook group where like a couple of my siblings, my mother are part of, but otherwise, like I don't hear from any of them. I don't really know what's going on, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. My dad's one of 11.
Oof.
And
Is he
they're,
Catholic or what?
what was that?
Catholic?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. My grandmother had 8 and adopted 3. So, and it's funny. We actually get together every year, once a year, and there's like 120 of us now because I have 36 first cousins at this point, and then they have kids, and now
That's why I know everyone.
Yeah, that's how I know everyone. And then we're on the next generation now. So my cousins' kids have kids now.
Yeah, that's wild.
And it's just like we'll go and there'll be babies running around like who's that? Who's that one belong to? What's that?
Yeah. Yeah.
We're most of us are still on Staten Island, as a matter of fact.
Okay. Yeah, well, that's pretty nice. We're dispersed all over the planet. I mean, we're everywhere. And like my oldest sister's daughter has a bunch of children of her own. So yeah, it's like and then I have babies. So like it's like the age, it's just the age difference thing. So
sure. Yeah. Yeah, we know the same thing. We have trouble figuring out the generations, who's in, what level. So
yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting coming from a big family. And like Brian says, on Staten Island, anywhere we go somewhere, we go out with friends. I know at least 1 or 2 people wherever we are.
Everywhere.
Oh, really?
Yes,
That's kind of
uncanny at times. I wanted to ask you about Blammo. That was your anthology series that you started. It was one of the first things you did, right?
Yeah, that was the first thing I did. I still am trying to do it. Like I have a new issue that's almost done, and I might just like kickstart it or something.
Right.
I don't really know.
And that ended up getting selected for America's Best Comics, right?
Yeah, there was a story from one of the issues that was in America's Best, and yeah, I mean, it has like a pretty loyal following. Like when I do an issue, I sell them all. Like and so I feel like I should keep putting them out, but I get distracted with doing books. The thing is that when you do a comic book like that, the money's just not very. It's a comic book. The money's not very good. Like you sell to a comic shop, maybe you'll get some money from them if you track them down. So I always just get distracted. But I feel like a comic book is its own art form that's separate from graphic novels. Like it requires a different skill set. Like writing short stories requires a different skill set than writing a longer story. And I like to like kind of keep that to keep exercising that muscle to keep that skill. But I kind of drifted away from it, and I'm trying to write a short story right now, and I'm finding it really difficult to do it under a certain amount of pages.
Yeah. Well, it's sometimes it's harder. Shorter works.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Like each issue of Maple Terrace had to be 32 to 33 pages, right? So like that was really hard to do that because you're like, okay, I guess this is the information I'll put into this issue, and how do I get that condensed enough? Yeah, and to not have like a wonky pacing that feels really weird or uncomfortable for a reader. It's strange. It's kind of the hidden art form of comics that people don't think about or talk about.
Well, yeah, a lot of creators that I read about, some of the like Alan Moore or Steve Moore, those early guys in the 80s from England, they were all very happy to have started with 8-page features because it taught them a certain kind of discipline in writing. And it is a lot harder to write something that short. I've tried my hands at comic writing a couple of times, and to write something short is so much harder than to sort of expand something into like 100 pages or whatever,
Yeah.
It takes so much discipline and planning,
Do you write comics too?
No, not in a long time.
Brian's an ELA teacher, so he teaches others how to write.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I used to write a lot more when I was younger. But yeah, writing something short just becomes so difficult, and it's a whole discipline thing that you have to follow.
His dream is to write.
Yeah, eventually. When I was teaching.
Another thing about that is that, like, if you're writing your own stories for yourself, you start to notice that there's patterns that you fall into, or there's character types you fall into. There are different situations that you keep putting your characters through, and I keep finding that with myself, and I'm like, how do I stop doing that? But it's like it's what I'm comfortable doing because it's
Right.
something natural from my own life, or it's what I know.
Mm-hmm.
And I talked about this before, but like Seth, that cartoonist from, do you know Seth?
Yeah, I've heard of the name. Mm-hmm.
He talked about that. Like if you find yourself writing the same thing over and over again, don't fight it. Just keep doing it.
Yeah.
It's obvious that you're trying to work something out in your
Right.
own life. And so even if people hate you for it and they like make fun of you for it, whatever, it doesn't really matter. It's like, it seems to be very important that you keep going back and doing this same story because you're working something out.
Yeah, that seems to be a natural occurrence for a lot of creators where they come back to the same ground no matter what they're doing. Like a lot of the people I follow seem to go over the same things over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're a fan of R. Crumb, right?
Yeah. Yeah, big fan.
Talk about repeating embarrassing things.
Right.
Crumb is like a great example of that.
Absolutely.
He puts everything, warts and all, out there. That just
I don't like his like sexy stuff. Like I don't like his like little his fantasies. I don't share those fantasies, so like I don't like that work really. But I'm so interested in that scene of like underground comics and the freedom that those people had.
Yeah,
and I feel like that was such an amazing era in American comics, not just for that, but also for all the stuff that's being made into movies and stuff right now from the mainstream was happening at the same time.
Yes.
Like Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, Steve Ditko, all that stuff was being created at the same time that, across the country on the other coast, all the like underground comic stuff was happening.
Mm-hmm.
And that really fascinates me that it was just something was going on there. Like something was in the air creatively.
Yeah.
Floating, I get really fascinated by that and the freedom that those guys had. Like they had their own printing presses, or they, so they were just like publishing their own, like they just started their own publishing companies and were publishing each other. And when I got involved in alternative comics, I assumed that's how it still was because I didn't know. Like I had read, somebody loaned me a copy of this book called Rebel Visions, which is like a Patrick Rosencrantz. It's the history of underground comics, right? So like basically I'd seen the movie Crumb and that was like, oh shit, like comics, it could be anything you want. Somebody gave me this book and I read it. And then I was like, who's the publisher? Oh, Fantagraphics Books. And I started just buying all their stuff thinking like, well, these are underground comics. Like that was still a thing that was happening.
Yeah.
So I assumed Fantagraphics had their own printing press and that they were doing all that stuff themselves. And like, I carried that notion for years because then I met this guy named John Porcellino, like another cartoonist. And he became like my, like, sort of like Zen master in comics or something. Like we hung out all the time and he kind of educated me about what it was to be a cartoonist. And his publisher is Drawn and Quarterly. And we were out for a walk and I was saying like, so then like, you finish a book and then like they printed there like and he's like, what are you talking about? Like that, like they don't have their own printing presses. That's not what a publisher means. Like I thought like publisher meant the same thing as like printer.
Yeah.
Oh
no, they have to go through a whole other thing. Yeah. That's along with R. Crumb. I also read that you like Joe Matt.
Mm-hmm.
Who it's funny, I read that and I was like, Joe Matt. So I went and looked at my shelves and I actually have The Poor Bastard.
Yeah,
great. I didn't realize I had that book and I read it years ago. What a crazy take on that story.
Yeah, one of my he's just passed away. He was.
Oh, did he? Oh, I didn't even know.
Yeah, died suddenly at his desk, which was funny because he was the least prolific cartoonist ever. Like, I mean, the last book he did was in 2007.
Right.
Everybody was constantly like, when are you going to put out a new book? When are you going to put out a new book?
Mm-hmm.
And he's always like, I'm working on a new book. Like on Facebook or whatever. Hey, I got a new book. Everybody's really excited all the time.
Yeah.
He wasn't doing anything, but he happened to die of a heart attack at his desk.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
In the new book?
Apparently, I don't know, but I don't think a book is coming out though. I don't know who would gather it. And all his books are out of print now, so it's like it's such a mess.
Oh my God, that's nuts.
She's one of my favorite. I mean, I love all of every book he did, the 4 of them or whatever, are just like wellsprings of like inspiration,
Yeah. It's very much sort of very naturalistic, almost memoir-like stories.
Yeah, self-deprecation. All of it's just hilarious. Like he will show you how to make fun of yourself in the most hilarious way to like present yourself as being just such a shithead, but you still root for the character. Yeah. And I think that was like a big lesson. I took that and used that in my own work a lot,
And that's that's a big connection to those underground comics you were talking about earlier, like Harvey P. Carr's American Splendor and well, our Crumb stuff. P. Carr's whole career was, look at what a schmuck I am.
Yeah, that stuff is hard to read now, though, man. It's so depressing because now I'm like the age that he was, so like it's like really grim. Like he's talking about getting old and all this stuff. In the comics. I'm like, I know it, brother, but I don't want to hear about it anymore.
I don't want to read about it. I'm living it.
Yeah, exactly.
I started reading our cancer year once.
Oh yeah.
I had to put it down. I was like, I can't read this. I can't.
Yeah.
It was just too upsetting.
It's terrifying.
Yeah, like once you get past 40, you're like, I don't want to think about this.
Yeah, you could read that as like a 20-year-old and be like, that's not going to happen.
I'll never get there.
Yeah.
Here we are.
I know, it's so uncomfortable. And can you imagine having that on your shelf? It's like you look at that every day. You see the word cancer every day. I don't want to see this.
I had somewhere in my house.
Have it sitting somewhere.
Yeah.
You read a lot of dark stuff, though.
I do.
Now, in terms of the publishing, you published Maple Terrace with Uncivilized Comics, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Who else are you working with currently publishing?
I bounce all over, like depending on the project. But Fantagraphics Books is one of my main publishers. I think they've done the majority of my work, and I'm doing one currently for them. And I worked with Abrams Comic Arts. I think that's really like my main. I've done some stuff on Civilized, Fantagraphics, and Abrams, and then like a few other smaller publishers. But
now you're reaching out to them, or they're coming to you. Like Uncivilized, we interviewed Tom from Uncivilized, and that's how this came about. He mentioned you, and we went out and picked up Maple Terrace, and we both loved it. So we figured, let's try to get you on. How did that pairing come about?
I'm kind of at this point where I have enough notoriety where if I'm working on a project, I know people, like all the different publishers. So I go like, I think this one's best for this person, and then I'll just kind of reach out to them. And at this point, I'm not bragging. I'm just telling you the honest truth. Like I'm never like rejected. Like I'll just be like, I'm working on this thing. Would you be interested in doing it? And they always have said like, yeah, that'd be great. Like, let's put it on our schedule or something. So
good place to be.
Yeah, I'm in a very good position when it comes to finding publishers and stuff because they know like I have a certain number of readers. They know what they can expect from publishing my work, and I'm easy to work with. I've never like missed a deadline or anything, so they like.
What's the print run on each issue of Maple Terrace?
I don't know, like 1,000 maybe.
Oh, really? That's it?
Wow.
I think so. Yeah, I think it's a pretty conservative number.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for most, like if I do an issue of Blammo, I'll print 1,000 of them, and then that's about how many people are going to buy it. And then if people want to get it in the future, they get it secondary. Like on somebody selling their copy on eBay or something like that.
But what about something like with Fantagraphics?
Fantagraphics, I think they're between 2,000 to 5,000.
Okay.
Runs.
Mm-hmm.
Depending on the book. Like I think my first book, the Hypo, which was about like Abraham Lincoln's Depression.
Yeah.
I think that was 5,000 copies. But it's about Abraham Lincoln, so you can kind of keep that around.
Right. Yeah.
What is I was doing my research like Brian, but nowhere near as much. What's the war?
The War?
Yeah. Isn't that's the first thing you publish?
No, I don't know what that is.
It came up in a list of things for you.
The War.
The War.
I don't know. I don't know what that is. Maybe. You didn't research me. Who are you talking about?
No, it was on Wikipedia, and I'm like, and it's funny because it was really out of date compared to everything else.
Yeah,
1989, and everything else is much later. And I was like,
that can't be right.
That can't be right.
That's right now, but I looked it up and I was like, it doesn't seem to line up with everything else.
Yeah, I would have been 5 years old. I wasn't doing
that. I was like, wait, 1989 he published, and I was like, did he publish a comic book when he was a kid?
Saying that, but that's somebody being silly because I do have so I was doing comics when I was a little kid.
It's on your Wikipedia page.
That's hilarious. I did do a comic called The War.
1989.
Yeah, it's like stapled and everything like that. Drawn on computer paper, and I posted it all over social media.
Oh,
so
that's how it happened. Okay.
That's somebody being silly. That's funny. Wow.
We were like, oh, he's a prodigy.
So we can't get a copy of The War from.
No. There's only one copy in existence, but that's pretty funny.
That's valuable. It's a limited one of one.
Yeah.
So I wanted to also ask you about a couple of things you seem to be fans of, fan rather. So the first would be Howard the Duck. You wanted to do Howard the Duck at Marvel.
Yeah, I did. I was trying to petition them to let me do it, my own version of it.
Right. And why Howard the Duck?
Because I'm a cartoonist, I feel like I could handle it. Mm-hmm. You know, I could write that kind of thing. I've read all the Steve Gerber stuff. I was like, I could do this. Stuff, yeah, I could do, like, if they just gave me, like, 4 issues or something like that, like I could do like a mini series. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was just something I was like, I want to do that, so that was some years ago. And I remember, what's that guy's name who was like the editor? Now he's the editor in chief over there at Marvel.
Not Joe Quesada.
No, he's famous for doing like the fake Japanese name guy.
What?
No. You know what I'm talking about? All right, now I gotta Google this.
Jim Lee's the publisher of DC.
So at Marvel, who is?
You guys should know this. You're the nerds.
Yeah, no, you know what? I honestly read Watch the scowl. I read Marvel online, and I don't pay a lot of attention to the more current stuff. I read a lot of the old stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, so like I really 70s
that's it.
Marvel.
CB Sobolski.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so he had written me back and said no. That was some years ago. Like, yeah, he just like basically shut it down, like not happening. I was like trying to, at the time, this was like 2012 or something. I was like, I had like a whole petition set up, like let Noah draw Howard the Duck or whatever,
Yeah.
And he wrote back to me and said no. So
yeah, that's the kind of thing they should do with that character is like, a cartoonist like you handle that. Yeah. That would be fun and different. And
so why not do Destroy a Duck then? It's basically the same.
Yeah, what was that, Pacific Comics or something?
Yeah.
They're not around anymore. I'm like,
yeah. So if you had any character you could work on right now, would it be Howard the Duck, or has that changed over the years?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I want to do anything. I mean, I could like write something. I don't have the art skills to handle it.
Who would you want to write right now if you were offered a character from DC or Marvel? Who would you want to write?
That's a good question. Maybe like Werewolf by Night.
Good choice. Yeah.
I'd want to get something kind of lower tier so that I wouldn't get too much scrutiny.
Right.
And then I would have more room I want like wiggle room to like mess with it.
Right.
Yeah. Can't do that with Spider-Man.
No, or Superman or.
Yeah. I don't know. I'd have to look at my shelf here. Maybe what was that pachyderms, that like X-Men joke with the pachyderms? Do you guys remember that?
No.
Do you remember that?
No. I'm not.
It was like one issue.
I was. I'm not.
Yeah.
There was one issue of it was like a gag that Marvel did where they had like the X-Men, but they were called like the X pachyderms or something like that, and they were all look like Cerebus. They were like, it was like,
that's great.
Yeah, it was like a goofy thing. I'd take on that. I don't know. I would take on something so silly.
It's like when Mojo turned them all into babies.
Yeah.
Baby or something.
Yeah. I would just want to have fun with it,
What are you collecting right now, or what are you reading?
Right now, I have this Captain Marvel family.
Oh,
Do you have this? Yeah, they're doing all the. I love all the facsimiles that they're doing.
I get everyone that comes out from Marvel and DC. Just
those are the old Fawcett stories, right?
That's the old Fawcett.
Yeah,
but DC just re-put them in. It's from like 6 months, 7 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
I think I was talking to somebody about this because I also got the facsimile of like an issue of Young Romance that they did.
Yeah,
I don't know why they did it other than to protect the copyright.
Probably
that must be why, right?
It's gotta be, because there's no way people are buying Young Romance.
No, I was like, why would they do Young Romance? Is there some story in here that led to something else in the Marvel universe or something, or DC, I guess? So I don't know. It was weird.
And it's weird because the last ones they just did Death in the Family. So
I saw that, but it's the alternate version.
Yeah, I saw that where he survives.
Yeah. So that's pretty interesting.
We didn't vote his death. We let him survive.
Yeah, I didn't know that they'd drawn that. and then just had it in a file somewhere.
I thought it was really interesting that they finally released it after all this time.
I guess they must have done both endings and then
They
just
would have
waited
had
for
to.
the vote and thought like, okay, this issue will go out or that.
I'm betting they did the one issue where he survives, and they were like, "There's no way people are going to kill Robin." People, and then
People aren't that heartless.
They destroyed him.
Right. I guess because it was pre-internet, they didn't realize how heartless people
I
were.
voted to keep him alive, but you know.
Yeah.
Did you? Oh, you guys voted in that.
I didn't vote in that one.
I was big into comics at that point. Like I have, I'll buy the facsimile. I have the actual copy sitting around here somewhere too.
Okay. I also got the facsimiles of Batman Year One with Mazzucchelli. I had to get. I mean, I have the trade paperback of that because that's such a great comic. And so I saw the single issue facsimiles. I was like, that's an awesome idea.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of destroys
because they were doing the dollar ones for a while, which was awesome. They were doing a dollar.
Oh yeah, I don't know if they were. I think they were $3.99 or something each.
The dollar ones were great, and then they were selling really well. They got rid of them.
Oh, okay. Doesn't that kind of destroy the value of the single issues, the original single issues? It is something like that.
I would think so. But I like them because that's what I end up reading. Like I'll have it's like I know they did She-Hulk a while back. She-Hulk number one. I have the actual She-Hulk number one, but I'll read the facsimile just as to not. Actually, the one I just bought was Omega Men 3. Just came out.
That appearance of Lobo.
Yeah, it's more comfortable. It's more comfortable to read the comic books than like the paperback or like the hardcover omnibus or all that stuff. Like it's just better. And I still like that kind of throwaway quality to mainstream comics. Like it's difficult to be like really precious with those things as objects for me. It's like I like these facsimiles because you can just kind of dive in, read it. If it sucks, you can just toss it and not even feel. I mean, that's me. I will. You know that Michael Jordan logo on the shoes?
Yeah.
That's me dunking those things into a recycling bin after I'm done reading them.
At the end of this video, I'll turn the camera on and I'll show you what's behind on the other side of us.
What we're surrounded by at the moment.
Now, I can't throw anything out.
No. Oh boy, I have to. There's no room in this house.
That's my problem.
It's bad right now.
One more, not one more, but another thing. You did a comic called Grateful Dead Origins.
Yeah.
Are you a Grateful Dead fan?
I became one. Yeah, I like that stuff. I'm not like a deadhead.
Yeah.
But, you know, again, it's like I like that era. They hired me because I have that underground comics style. Like that's the doorway I came in through. So they were looking for somebody like that.
So the Dead actually were the ones who kind of contacted you?
Yeah, it was Rhino Records, their record company.
Nice.
So we did that book together, but there was some kind of argument between the record company and the publisher. That like got really heated, and so when the book was actually ready, neither of them promoted it, so it became this like total disaster.
Really?
It was so heartbreaking because the book was gearing up to be like this big thing for like they were going to sell tons of copies to the Grateful Dead fans and everything.
Sure, there's a lot of fans.
Yeah, and I was like, whoa, this is going to be great. And then man, it just like they just got so. I wasn't even a part. Like, I wish I would have been involved in it. I didn't know about it until later that they hated each other. So the book just basically was sabotaged. Yeah. But me and the writer Chris, like, we had this whole plan to do like several volumes of this to take it all the way to the current day. And I was excited for it, but we may have saved the project. It's like we never gave up on it. We just moved it. We've been like kind of moving it around to different publishers, and the record company is still on our side and still very interested in us continuing it.
That's good.
I would like to redo that first book and do the coloring myself because that's my one critique with that book is like I didn't have the time to color it.
Yeah,
and so the coloring doesn't really. It kind of clashes with my art style. So I'd like to go back and fix it and fix a couple of the drawings and stuff, but. I don't think it's like a dead project.
Yeah,
it is sort of, it's so like alive, but we're like, it's like in the process of like figuring out like where we're going to move it. And yeah, like I have a script and everything and I want to keep going with it. But you know, that was published by Z2, this publishing company that after we did that, they were so stoked on the idea of doing like music biographies. So that became like the only thing they did. So that book started like they're now like their brand identity. So you'll see them. They'll put out like David Bowie, whatever. Like all these, they did like Machine Gun Kelly. Like there's nobody low enough.
They did
no one low enough for them not to go.
Taylor Swift one.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about. I would guess. I mean, that's like all
There's
they
Terrace.
do.
I'm pretty sure it's that's the publisher because it's
They're not the ones that did the heavy metal.
no
ones.
heavy metal ones are that's a different one.
These are the one who
They
did
do.
like Anthrax and Judas Priest ones and stuff.
Z2 would do like,
Popular ones.
trying to think like,
Quality's not good. Like
yeah, they
heavy
did like an
metal
Elvis. They did like an Elvis graphic novel.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can look. They just did everybody. Like I'm sure, like My Chemical Romance and all this stuff. Like they will just do a graphic novel for any of these bands, and the bands get behind it because all they have to do is have somebody in the band hold up the book in a photo and post it on their Instagram or whatever, and then they're like,
Yeah,
it's
they
all.
sell a ton of
They
them.
sell a
Right?
ton of them. I don't. I don't think they sell them at comic shops either. I've never seen one.
No. It's a weird thing because I never saw that Grateful Dead book out in the wild, and I guess like I was thinking like, well, maybe it's because they got into a fight with each other, but I don't think that's it. It's just like, I don't know where I think it's only sold online or something.
Yeah,
It's so
you go to
strange.
that site and buy. That's a lot of them like that.
Yeah?
The Taylor Swift one they did like
Yeah.
her history. It's
That's really, it's so shady. I don't know. I just like, I want to make comics like that. Like I want my stuff to be out in the world.
Sure.
I don't want it to be like you have to go visit some online store.
site and you pay way more than you should for it, and
Yeah.
that's what they are.
And that
But-
connects back, by the way, the Dead connects back to that idea of also R. Crumb and that whole underground West Coast thing you were talking about before that you admire.
Mm-hmm.
It's all kind of a piece,
Yeah, definitely. Because they had their own sort of DIY thing going on too. Like they,
Mm-hmm.
they became their own industry
Oh, yeah.
and didn't rely so much on outside sources, the way that other musicians did and stuff. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting that you keep coming back to that sort of
Independent.
California beatnik kind of.
I know, yeah. I know.
Not
was
working
like-
for the man.
Yeah.
Well, I do like a lot of that beatnik stuff too, though. I'm a fan of like Jack Kerouac and everything,
Yeah.
But yeah.
You did a comic about, well, not really about, but a character somewhat based on Bukowski.
Yeah, it's this character named Fonte Bukowski, who's like a wannabe writer. He's like a big fan of Charles Bukowski.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, is inspired by him,
Yeah.
and is just trying to like live that lifestyle. It's like a cliche for like a lot of 20-year-old
Oh,
guys. I feel like everybody has to go through that phase. I went through that phase.
30 years ago, I went through that phase too. Where
Yeah.
I'm only reading Burroughs and, smoking unfiltered cigarettes and
Yeah, that whole like romanticizing alcoholism and like loneliness and all that stuff.
right. Yeah.
So yeah, it's like lampooning that, and that's like one of my most famous or popular comic series. That thing was very popular. So,
Yeah. The book, I saw the book in Jim Hanley's,
Mhm.
and it looks like, from what I remember, the cover looks like one of those American Library
yeah.
books. Yeah. Like the ones
Yeah.
from like the big expensive, collection.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. That Fantagraphics pulled that off.
Yeah. It looks really nice.
really copied that precisely. It was great.
Yeah.
So what are you working on now? What's coming next?
I'm working on a graphic novel for Fantagraphics. I don't know if I'm nervous to even talk about it though. It's sort of in the vein of Fonte Bukowski.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of takes place in the same universe. Like I have some of the characters from that series kind of show up in this.
Uh-huh.
And I'm working on like I have like some kind of pitches that are out, floating around to different publishers. So we'll see kind of which ones get picked up and what I'm going to start working on next. Like big book, like I want to do like a big project. So I have some like big book projects or big book ideas that I sent to my agent to send around. So I don't really know. I'm in like kind of a weird, actually it's pretty relaxing. I'm in like a relaxing mode right now.
Uh-huh.
So I don't
That's
know.
good. I have another question.
Yeah.
Comic. If there was a creator you could work with, who would you want to work with right now? Like an
Writer or artist?
An artist, let's say for you, or a writer, whichever one you would prefer to work with, or both.
I like this guy Carl Stevens. Do you know his work?
No.
Like his work is like painted. It's amazing. It's like photorealistic, like watercolor painting.
Mhm.
Amazing. I'd like to work with him on like a Jurassic Park. Like I want to take the book Jurassic Park and adapt the book into a graphic novel, not the movie.
Right.
And then have this guy do it because it would look realistic.
Yeah.
I think that would be like kind of a dream project.
What's he working on, the guy? What's he doing now?
So one of his most famous books is this thing called Penny, and it's about a cat. It's about his cat basically, but it's really psychedelic and weird.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of David Sedaris, it's like one of his favorite graphic novels, and
Okay. Mm-hmm.
he's on tour, and every time he does his tour, he sells copies of it outside next to his own book.
Oh, wow. That's great.
Yeah, it's got like it's pretty popular within like that sort of NPR kind of crowd, which is a good crowd to be popular in.
New Yorker magazine, etc.
Yeah, and he did another book called I think Mother Nature or something like that with Jamie Lee Curtis, the actress. It's like a weird horror book.
Oh, okay. Uh-huh.
And that's a pretty beautiful thing too. Like, yeah, he's great. So I'd like to work with him, like specifically on that Jurassic Park idea. I think that would be great.
That would be cool. Jurassic, because the novel, I don't know how many people know this, but the novel's really different from the movie. Very different.
Yeah, it's very different.
It's a lot darker at the end.
It was much better too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say anything, but you should read if anybody out there likes the
spoils a book that's 20-something years old. You can spoil it. Okay, go ahead.
but it's still a book.
It's still a book.
You know that people don't read books.
Yeah.
They
should read it.
Congo, that's right.
Yeah.
I'm a huge Congo.
Got all that like interesting computer stuff in there from like the early 90s, like the computer graphs and all this stuff in the middle of the story. You're like, wait a second, what?
Yeah.
that would definitely be interesting.
It would be.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go look at his art now. Where can people find you?
So I have a YouTube channel that's just Noah Van Sciver. I'm on Instagram at Noah VS Comics.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And that's about it, really. I have like a blog or whatever, but it's not really anything exciting going on over there. So
some people like to read.
Some people like to read.
Sure. Yeah. Well, it's just nvansciver at wordpress.com.
Yeah, we'll put links up in the comments too.
Yeah.
As promised, I will show you the other side of.
Oh yeah, let me see.
It's in bad shape right now because I just bought a whole bunch of new stuff. But let me just move you.
You got to be ready for this.
What?
Don't wait.
You're not seeing it really.
Those are all
those drawers are packed with comics.
And
then of course you see all the statues.
then at the bottom I ran out of room, so I had to go boxes.
Wow.
And then it's just stuff. Like there's stuff.
So the Flash is your favorite
yes,
character?
the Flash is my favorite character. Yes.
Wait, there's a whole.
And I can't go everywhere.
Can't get over
in. And then there's a whole, like, if you see the back of the room too, it's.
Oh my gosh!
It's bad.
And then by the stairs, there's even more.
And then there's even on this side too. There's.
Wow.
I collect stuff that I had when I was a kid, and also then restarted collecting stuff that I enjoy with my kids. So, like, I have a huge Justice League Unlimited collection. Me and my daughter watch it, so it just became.
Oh, okay. So
it's bad.
What do you use? eBay or something? How do you find all that stuff?
I go to a lot of shows.
Yeah,
there are a lot of conventions. So I don't like buying comics on eBay. I'd never. So I try to go to at least 1-2 shows a month.
Oh wow!
New Jersey.
Isn't there anything? There's going to a show and just flipping through long boxes is like the best thing ever.
Oh, it's great.
I've been saying it on this show for over a year now. It's instead of me paying for therapy, that's what I don't do.
Yeah,
I spent 2 hours. We have an episode coming up. I went to one deep in Jersey, like an hour and a half away from us. It's called Winterfest, and they had 50-cent boxes, and it was like
best. The best. I have a store near me called Heroes and Dragons that has just like $16 boxes, just like all on a bunch of folding tables.
It's great.
And I just go over there like once a month and just do nothing but dig through there. And it's always different because people just bring in their collections or whatever. And you find stuff in there that's really good, like it's a good comic, but maybe the condition's just not so great. So it's $1.
Yeah.
And I will plow through that stuff,
and you're spending $1 for it. So really,
oh yeah, No, it's
just to
great.
read, and that's I buy my comics to read. You know,
Yeah, me too. And I bring in a lot of stuff for trade for store credit.
Mhm.
So yeah, so I don't even really spend. I'm just like churning over stuff, and then
getting
go
new stuff
to
and
the
reading.
dollar
No,
boxes. And then
I keep every single thing that I buy.
really,
Yeah.
do you have your childhood collection still? Your comics?
It's funny you say that. I didn't, and then my grandmother passed away 6 years ago, and when we were cleaning our house, she had a cedar chest, and she saved all my comics. So I found
Whoa!
like a long box of comics from when I was much younger, and she had saved them. And there was, I mean, some like X-Men #6 and
Whoa! Oh my
first
god!
appearance of Gambit, first appearance of Deadpool. She had her. I didn't even know they were there. She had saved them from one of my moves, and it was, it was pretty cool how, she was really
That's
thinking about it.
so how old are you have one kid? You have one
I have
daughter?
two. I have a 24-year-old just got engaged and a 22-year-old.
Okay, so you're way out of the that stage of them coming down there and destroying your stuff.
No, they actually, I got back into collecting after, you pause that time when girls become more important. And
Yeah.
my kids got a little bit older. We go to Comic Con together, and my youngest just, it opened her world, and she's, trying to get into, she's starting to be in something to do with movies and stuff. And it's all because of going to Comic Con and stuff. And it created a bond between us. And that's how all of this grew out. It's, yeah.
I can't wait to do that. My son is only 2.5, and then my wife is pregnant with a second son.
Congratulations. That's great.
Thank you. So I can't wait until I'm just a few years from now. I'm going to start bringing my son with me to the comic shows. And he doesn't know about that world yet, but he's going to know. He's going to be raised in it, and I'm really excited about that. Him discovering all this stuff. He's going to have his own favorite comics. Like I was obsessed with I'm that generation who read like Bone when it was coming out.
Sure.
And I think I have that big collection.
Yep.
And it's like I know Jeff Smith I lived in Columbus, Ohio, not far from him. So I got a copy of that complete Bone signed to my son from him and stuff. And
that's great.
I'm excited for him to get to that age where he can experience all that.
Yeah, those are great starter comics. Cool.
Yeah, it's a really fun comic.
It's good to have some. We're both teachers. We work with a lot of younger people, and I tell all them it's good to just have something that a tradition with kid like that. For us, it's been the Marvel movies and the conventions where a new Marvel movie comes out. They don't want to go see it with their boyfriends or with their friends. They always want to go see it with dad, and that's, to me,
that's sweet.
That's all. I did something right because they want to spend time. We're actually trying to figure out how to go see Madam Web right now because she's up at.
Oh yeah, I heard that's not so great though, guys.
So did we. So that's why we're not really pushing too hard to go see it. But we're trying to figure out how we can go see it. But that's once your son goes see it, it's a totally different.
Oh yeah,
it's really cool when they're with you.
Yeah, I can't wait for that.
For some reason, with my kids, it was horror films that caught.
Oh really?
From me to them, yeah.
So what kind of horror films are you talking about?
Well, I mean, when they were younger, it was like much milder stuff, like scary stories to tell in the dark, or
Oh yeah,
yeah, or like Monster Squad from the 80s, things like that.
Yeah.
But now, I mean, my daughter's 19. She's really a big fan of. I don't know. Do you know the filmmaker Ari Aster?
No.
He made Hereditary and Midsommar.
Oh yeah.
These crushingly existential movies.
I'm scared of those.
My daughter's really into them, and I mean, I've watched horror movies my whole life, and I've watched those, and I'm like, oh my god, they're like spiritually,
unsettling. yeah. Well, I love
movies too.
Yeah,
I love the Universal monsters. That's one of my favorite things. So I can't wait to show. My son right now gets really scared. Like I have that, that Jack Davis Frankenstein, like a paper puppet thing, basically.
Yeah.
I had one of those on my office door here, and then my wife made me take it down because my son now is at the age where he's like, "That's scary,"
Yeah.
But I want to get him past that so I can show him like really good monster movies and things like that, sci-fi movies from the 50s. Like I want to watch Forbidden Planet with him and stuff.
I just watched that recently. I hadn't seen it in so long.
Oh, it's so good. Yeah, I love that.
That's a great movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, that's the kind of stuff that really took hold in my family.
Yeah, I love the swamp. All three of the Creature from the Black Lagoon is my favorite Universal monster, and all three of those films I love. Even though they get so bad. Like that third one is so
He's wearing clothes.
yeah, he's wearing clothes. He's really muscular for some reason. It's like, but I love it. And you can't tell the guys apart. Like there's always like a love triangle in those films, but you can't, that last one, all the dudes look the same. So it's like really confusing. Yeah, those are great. I mean, I saw it. What's that?
I'm sorry. There's a great book called "The Lady from the Black Lagoon." Have you heard of it?
I've heard of it. I haven't read it yet, though. She's the one who designed that.
Millicent Patrick, I think her name was. She was the first female animator at Disney, and she went on to design The Creature from the Black Lagoon. And her boss, whoever was running the effects and costuming department at Universal at the time, just basically stole all the credit from her.
Yeah.
She had a really, really interesting life. Like she grew up on the grounds of Hearst Castle.
Wow.
Because her dad was building it. Her dad was the architect who designed it.
Wow.
And so her childhood was spent as they were building Hearst Castle.
It's amazing.
It was a really odd life. That was really, I think she worked on Fantasia as an animator.
Yeah. I'd like to read that.
That's
Maybe
good.
I should check that out from Amazon.
Yeah, it's really good. Really good. Because again, it's that whole thing of like, it ties into the monster stuff, and it's also like about cartooning, and it's really, really interesting.
But she's now?
Yeah, well, now that the book's out and everything, they're kind of like saying like, oh no, actually she's the one who made the mask. And it's one of the most distinctive looking monsters in movie history,
Yeah.
So,
And like in Monster Squad, they didn't have the rights to the Universal monsters, so they had to kind of, so the swamp, the creature in that movie kind of has like a predator mouth.
Yeah.
Like opens up in that like four-way thing,
Yeah. It made him a lot scarier.
Oh, he was.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
It was Sam Winston, I think, who did those.
That's a weird movie.
That's a weird one. Not for kids.
That is a weird movie.
Wait, which one is?
Monster Squad. That is
not for kids?
No, that movie is.
It can be.
It's
but some really
really
weird,
violent.
The tone of it is really odd. Like it's part Goonies, but it's also part like 80s horror film. So it's like they tried to get both audiences at once.
Like they kill people in it.
Like
they're brutally
some
killed.
violent murders in it.
Yeah, that's tricky. Yeah, you don't want to do that.
You have to be a little bit older to watch that one.
But it's not as much. It's not like.
No, it's not like Jason. It's not
I
like
was
Friday
gonna say, it's not Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm
But it
Street.
wasn't made specifically for kids.
No, I don't think so.
But the 80s had the best like fantasy, horror. Like all those films are like, for some reason, the 80s, they just did it right. And I don't understand what that's about. Like why that generation was able to make all the movies that we're still kind of copying now or trying to redo or whatever. There was just something magic happening there too,
Yeah, I think it was sort of like a. I hate to say it, but like Generation X, we grew up with not neglect, but our parents kind of didn't really pay much attention to what we were doing if we weren't around them.
Yeah,
and so I think movies are made with that idea of once the kid gets in to see the movie, oh well, he's there to see it, so we're going to make anything, like so.
Yeah.
Plus, we had a time where we in the early 80s we get VCRs and we could watch anything we wanted, and no one was really supervising what you were watching. No one was stopping you from renting Friday the 13th, or Brian will talk about Alien. When you Alien is a tough movie to watch when you're a kid.
Well, my parents made the mistake of taking me to see Alien in the movie theater because it was post Star Wars, so they were like, "Oh, it's a space movie, so he's gonna love it," So I was 6.
That movie's
I think I was 6 years old.
That's a frightening movie.
You're just like not eating spaghetti ever again.
Right.
Those. I mean, I watched it on TV.
Oh,
that freaked me out. And then I saw The Stand later. Those are movies that, like, at that where I was second to youngest in the big family, so the older kids are going to watch what they're going to watch, and they don't care if you're in the room or whatever. They're, So I just got to see like all sorts of really freaky stuff. That warped me a bit. But the 80s movies, Daniel Clowes, that cartoonist.
Oh yeah,
he talks about how like EC Comics and those horror comics from that pre-code era were as violent and freaky as they were because the people that were drawing them were sanctioned killers from like World War II or whatever. Come home with PTSD and are forced to just kind of get back into society and get married and stuff, and they're not dealing with their trauma, but then they're drawing comics for a living So all this crazy violence is coming out in the art that they're making. So there's a lot of like,
That's
Yeah,
really
like
interesting.
that. That's an interesting one because if you look at all the gore and all the gruesomeness of that,
in the violence towards
Yeah.
women and stuff, because they're
Yeah.
all married and they're just
Yeah.
like trapped and alcoholics and stuff. And
Well,
yeah.
the 80s filmmakers, like, well, Tom Savini, the special effects guy, he was a Vietnam vet.
Oh, was he really?
Yeah. Yeah. He did Dawn of the Dead
Yeah, that's how I know him. Dawn of the Dead.
after leaving Vietnam.
Wow.
He did the effects for Dawn of the Dead. And Dawn of the Dead, when it came out, was one of the most gruesome movies made.
Was he? Didn't he have something to do with From Dusk Till Dawn?
He was
he's
in it.
in it.
He's in it. That's right.
Did
He's the one with like the dick
Yes.
gun.
Yeah,
gun in his
Tom
belt
Savini.
buckle? Yeah, that's him.
Now, didn't they reuse that gun in like another Robert Rodriguez movie, like maybe a Desperado or something?
might
It
have
does
been,
pop
yeah.
up again.
It
Yeah,
shows
I
up
don't remember
a
which
few
one, but
times.
it does pop. It
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other day, Dust Till Dawn was on the other day. I love that movie. Yeah.
It's so good.
But yeah, that's interesting because the theory would probably work for the 80s then too.
From the Vietnam.
Because they would have been Vietnam
Oh, right. Of
leading
course.
right into the 80s.
Yeah. And they're just making the freakiest shit, with just a weird, all the sound effects were creepy, like just the keyboard. That was like some kind of like new interesting technology for them. So they're just like, everything's just like kind of unsettling.
John Carpenter stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Vietnam vet too. And
I don't think he didn't go to the war. He was in college.
Asian Company.
Yeah.
Because we love him. He's he's our favorite.
Yeah.
That's an interesting, there's a book in that, by the way.
Yeah. Well, they were willing to take risks with film back then. They're not willing to take any of those risks anymore. Now they got to be sure that this, everything's a business transaction. They got to know how much money they can expect to make and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Well, that's big budget though. If you're getting a lot of the movie producers that are doing stuff on Amazon and stuff like that, and I don't know how big you are into horror, but Terrifier.
Mm-hmm. I haven't heard of that.
Okay, it's actually made by a friend of mine.
Okay.
There's a production company on Staten Island that's making all these horror movies, and I tell you, pushing the limits of gruesomeness.
Mm-hmm.
It is. It's a friend of ours who I hang out with. I couldn't get through the movie. That's how.
Oh, really?
It's really pushing the limits of. It would never be a movie that is going to be pushed. Like it's not going to be a big horror movie. But the last one they made was Terrifier 2. They made it for like 250,000. It made over 10 million.
Wow.
And now they're working on 3, and their budget for 3 is like 3 or 4 million now. So it's
amazing.
There's these independent filmmakers who are not going directly into theaters. They're going very small. They're going on Amazon, and they're becoming big, and they will continue to grow. So it's like it was in the 80s. It's just streaming. You're streaming everything.
Yeah, but it's not as mainstream, is it? But that's another thing too. Mainstream is kind of dead because there is no subcultures. There's no subcultures, and everything is everything's divided up into like a million different things. Like there's no or I shouldn't say there's no subcultures. There's no mainstream because everything's divided up a million ways. So everybody has their own little universe that they're in, and nobody's really taking part in the exact same thing, whether they would have when there was 4 channels on TV or whatever,
Right.
Yeah. So there's all these films that are happening and stuff that you've never heard of that are great.
You won't hear of.
And you'll never hear about them. Yeah. It's just how it is,
Yeah, and I guess it's good in a way and not good in a way.
Yeah.
We all have a voice now is part of it too. Everyone, us,
Yeah. Right.
You all have a voice. And I don't know how much you're on YouTube, but there's YouTube stations that are dedicated to small science fiction movies, a channel called Dust. And it's fantastic, like short films, sci-fi films.
Oh, really?
Fantastic. And they have a horror one too.
They're really well done.
Really, really well done, but 14 minutes long, and it's
You said it's called Dust?
Dust.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's hundreds and hundreds of science fiction movies of every genre you could think of. I love time travel, so I'll watch any of their time travel. They do alien ones, and there's horror ones too, and they're really, really well done, but they're short films.
Yeah.
All right, so you like time travel. What did you think about that Stephen King 11/28/60?
That was a good book.
6 or whatever. Did you see the movie version of it?
Oh.
No, I like the book.
Okay. Yeah, you should watch the film. It's like James Franco.
Was it good?
When did it come out?
Oh, years ago, like probably
Apple TV?
8 years ago. It was on. I think I watched it on Hulu.
I'll watch any time travel movie.
Yeah, it was.
But the guy goes back to stop the Kennedy assassination.
Oh, that really one?
Yeah, that's basically what it's about. Yeah.
But like every time he tries to change history, something happens. Something because it's like it's hard to correct. Destiny almost or something. Like,
yeah, it's like
Time Machine,
like Sound of Thunder, where like he stepped on the butterfly and ruins everything.
the newer version.
Yeah.
You remember that Simpsons episode,
Yes.
Treehouse of Horror?
One of my favorites.
Yeah.
And he just smashes everything. That's a great.
I think about him sneezing at the dinosaur all the time,
Yeah.
and then just dropping like flies.
That would be.
Well, it would be like that, right? Like we can never explore other planets when you think about how would you, as soon as you take your mask off, you're going to get something that exists on that planet. Your skin's going to fall off.
Yeah.
Or you're going to sneeze and kill everything there.
That's how time travel would never
Really
work.
destroys the romance of it.
Yeah. Can you imagine you time travel and you have COVID? You don't even realize it. You're asymptomatic.
COVID starts in the 1800s.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
This has been fun.
This has been fun. I took way too much of your guys' time. I'm sorry.
We got nothing else to do. We're taking too much of your time, but we like this. It's not like a real official interview. It's just chatting with.
Yeah, that's how I like it.
Very much a podcast kind of feel.
Yeah. You have any shows or anything coming up where you're going to make appearances?
Oh, I'm going to Emerald City Comic Con.
Okay.
Next weekend, I think is when it starts. So yeah, I'll be in Seattle, and I think then I do Heroes Con every year, which is a really good comic show. Probably one of the best comic shows in America.
North Carolina?
Yeah. Charlotte.
I had a friend of ours drove down there 2 years ago. It's far. Babyface drove down there.
Yeah, my dad lives in North Carolina.
I have a great time there every year. They have like a perfect mix of guests. They get a lot of like indie alternative cartoonists with like big mainstream people.
Yeah.
And it's just I don't know why somehow it works out very well, and good show for like original art sales and things like that. It's just fun.
We might go check out the small press convention in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
It's at Mocha. It's called Mocha.
Oh, Mocha. Yeah. I wanted to go there. I was like, if Maple Terrace the book is done by then, I'll go to Mocha for that. But I don't think it's going to be. Yeah, I don't think it's going to be out by then. Unfortunately,
we're going to go meet up with Tom from Uncivilized.
Right.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
The one that suggested it to us. So
we'll bug him about it. Be like, hey, where's that Maple Terrace book?
Thank you again.
Yeah.
Thanks for your time. Anytime you ever want to be on, just let us know.
Yeah. Oh, that'd be great.
You want to push the book or anything?
We got something else,
Yeah. Okay. Send me a link to this. Channel.
I will. As soon as it's done, I'll send you a link. Hopefully, it recorded this time.
Yeah. Well, let me know. I recorded it too, just in case. By the way,
good. Thank you.
Need it? Let me know.
All right, good. We'll keep in touch.
Okay, bye.
All right, take care.